Today, I am breaking down the 2026 NFL Draft guards and center class. Let's hop right into this. This is going to be a top 20 on YouTube and a top 32 on Patreon. Yes, it's going to be an exclusive top 32 that you can go. It's $5 a month, but you get extended versions of all of my other positional rankings that had an extended version, and also you get access to my board. And on top of that, you also get access to all of my rankings that are numerical, not just the letter grades you see in this video. Feel free to support me over there. We already have 30 members, so I really do appreciate it. I know not all y'all are paid, but that is perfectly fine. You guys take your time, energy, and also some of y'all your money to be able to support me outside of YouTube, which I do really appreciate. So I want to reward you guys with stuff like that. Also, when I do stuff like this, I release it early over on Patreon. So you guys get to also have a little bit of exclusive access there. Let's jump right into this though, because we need to understand, yeah, this is my rankings. How do we get there? It's a 1 to 100 scale. What does that mean? Now, the categories below my face are the ways that I end up breaking it down. I also have a frame category that I don't really include with the letter grades because you see with your eyeballs what their height and their weight is. And also I end up actually guesstimating the arm length, but because this is my first year doing it, not going to be including that in case I am horrifically off, but it's still fun to be able to play behind the scenes. If you guys are Patreon members, you will be able to see it. But it is a 1 to 100 scale. And you have to understand what the context is. If you are an 80 and above, I believe that you are a blue chip player. Technically, 90 and above is generational. Have yet to have an interior offensive lineman hit that number. So I ended up shifting this. I do have blue chip as its own category for this. I have it for all positions, but it's just very rare that you get to see it on these. And the tier 2 is going to be the starters. So that's 75 to 80. And there's a good group of them in this class, a very solid, very strong group. And there's that tier 3 that's 75 to 70 territory, which is going to be those fringe starters. If you got to plug them in, they'll work. Like if you end up losing a veteran and you have somebody that probably needs one more year of development before being a high-end starter, then they're going to be in this tier. And then there's that tier 4, which are the developmental guys, the backup guys, just depending on whether they're going to be higher ceiling or higher floor. And how do we get to this 1 to 100 scale? We end up breaking it down in these categories. There's pass block. Basically, it's a holistic category. Do you know how to pass block? I know I don't necessarily look like it. I played offensive line for 7 years. I know, mind-blowing, right? But I ended up learning quite a bit through that. But on top of that, I know quite a few offensive linemen. I've been able to study the offensive line position, and it's something that I really am passionate about. So luckily, it's pretty difficult for people to just have that sixth sense. And I'm not saying that I'm some necessary guru. I try my best, and that's what I owe you guys, is honesty and my best. I would say for those of y'all who are trying to, get that, understand the position, just watch you guys in the NFL. Get NFL Plus, even though their DAZN bullshit is really irritating me. But just watch the all 22 of the best tackles, the best guards, the best centers, and see what they do and how they respond to the best of the best on the other side. And then you can apply it to how you end up looking at players in college, because you get to see little glimpses of what they could be in the NFL. So pass block is a holistic category. You end up seeing how they perform all around. Can you handle speed rushers? Do you protect your outside shoulder if you're a tackle? But if you are more so a guard or a center, are you able to stay square to the target? Because if you're letting up one side of the shoulder, you're probably not going to be doing too well against those actually talented defensive interiors. They know how to take advantage of you. Run block, very similarly. Do you have the clamps? Are you able to plow some dudes into the dirt? That's how you're going to be able to be efficient as a run blocker. But the most important thing between those two categories is consistency. The flash can pop up in power. The flash can pop up in anchor. But the consistency is where you really end up separating the best of the best. And that's why there is a developmental or a backup tier. Some guys just are not necessarily very consistent. But, anchor. Some people are asking, what does anchor look like? Because you can't just stand there and then have a guy who's 300 pounds hit you in the chest and nothing happens. Some players, I think Christian Mahogany was one of those that barely ever moved. And there is a guy in this class that has an A+ in his anchor category. So got to give a shout out there. But, it's essentially, first off, how do you handle initial contact? Do you get backed up immediately, or Are guys going to be taking a little bit more punishment than you are taking punishment? But this is the next level to it. There's another layer to the onion, so to speak, and that is the re-anchoring ability. Because yes, when you have someone who is 300, 330 pounds, who is running at full speed and is coming right off the line into your chest, naturally there is going to be a chance where your initial anchor breaks. Now, if you're going back, can you stop? Can you plant your feet and say, I gave up some ground? No more. This is where the line is drawn. And that matters a lot because some guys have a really good initial anchor, but they cannot replant their feet. That's going to be a problem when Dexter Lawrence lifts your ass off the ground and you cannot stop. That is going to be a problem. So re-anchor is actually something that's very, very crucial that over the past couple of years, I've learned to appreciate more and more. Now, mechanics, it kind of blends into run block and pass block as well. It blend of lower and upper mechanics. And like upper mechanics, are you striking the chest? Are you refiring your hands? Like there's just certain little nuances that you kind of need to do. Are you keeping your shoulders square? Again, all this bleeds together. There's not just like, it's a Venn diagram, right? There's a little bit of an overlap in all of this, but they're not completely different territories. You will be seeing that a lot of this can work together and does work together because it's all essentially one set of movements on a play, right? But the lower mechanics are, do you have a wide base? If you are blocking, do your feet get really close? If your feet are really close, there's an easy chance because you don't have a strong base. A defensive interior who is extremely strong is going to throw your ass to the ground. If you are on the ground, first off, you might just trip your running back, might be in the run lane. But the obvious thing is you're not blocking anyone. Going to be an issue. So, obviously those do really matter. And, if you end up seeing certain things like stunts and such, do you know how to be able to pass off? That is something that blends a little bit more into the IQ category that I'll talk about in a second. But power, self-explanatory. There's something that people don't think about too much, lower and upper body strength. Some dudes kind of act like they got some chicken legs. They kind of move their feet in place or they don't even move their feet at all. And you're not moving a guy north, south, east, west. That kind of sucks. I love a guy with some good leg drive. This class has a lot of those. But there's also the upper power, right? And surprisingly, not that many guys are able to master this. But do you have pop in your hands? When you extend your arms, does it look like the defender just took on contact, or does it look like you're essentially just nicely caressing their chest? I'm like, no. No, you go through that motherfucker. Like, your job is to punish him. I love players with power. I do think that it is something that's not as necessary as what us fans want to believe. Like, you need to just do your job, right? Sometimes the flash and the sexiness of it all just doesn't really add up to efficiency because do you think Dexter Lawrence is going to let you plant him on his ass? No. But it is nice to know if you are going to be going toe-to-toe versus Dexter Lawrence. I'm bringing him up because I think he's the best defensive interior in the NFL. But if you're going to be going toe-to-toe, you don't want him to think that you're going to give some little patty cakes to him. No. You want him to be like, fuck, it's the fourth quarter. This is the 60th time that I'm going to get popped in the chest by this guy. And that's really important to have. But at the same time, maybe not as important as what we want it to be. It's always fun to see a punisher, a mauler, so to speak. Mobility. This is very crucial for certain schemes, and that's why I've ended up identifying, not in this because, again, it's the first year that I'm doing it, test trials. I want to make sure before I give you guys information that I feel comfortable providing it to you, which, again, if you have the Patreon, you will see it as it is. But dividing guys between gap and zone. There are guys who are good at both, but gap and zone concepts, are you going to be better at moving? Or are you going to be better in shorter space? That's going to be very, very crucial. Some guys just cannot handle zone blocking systems where they're on the move blocking the whole time. And if you're going to be in a zone system, you better be mobile, right? I mean, if you're having to be out in front of your running back, if you're shifting the offensive line, you need to be mobile. So there's definitely something that there is certainly not as much focus on mobility maybe for the guards, in my opinion, as, we look at for tackles. Like if you have a slow tackle, you're probably screwed in every system. But if you have a slow guard, there's certain gap systems that will be able to utilize you. And at least you can end up the hope is not all lost. Then IQ. IQ is super important. I don't think people value this enough. Like, do you know what the hell is going on? First off, on the interior of the offensive line, a ton of stunts are happening, right? Like, you're talking about linebackers, edge rushers, defensive interiors. All of them are doing crazy shit because they just want to get past you. They want to confuse you and get in your head. Can they get in your head? Now, if you don't know how to pass somebody off, basically you have a guy, there's a dude stunting around, so there's nobody blocking him. You need to pass him to your center if you're the left guard in this situation, and then end up going and taking on the new guy. Some guys have no idea the stunt is coming. And then there's just a free rusher. The center's like, bro, what the hell just happened? Pass the guy off and block the dude who's in front of you. Of course, Penn State's very unique. I remember when Hunter Norzad did this, it turns out they actually have to call it. They have to like call when you end up switching. It's not supposed to be something that's instantaneous. But for the most part, you know, you need to know what the hell's going on. If you're tracking downfield, think about the zone concept. If you're on the move and you have no idea where anybody is, how are you going to be in the right position to block? And then the biggest thing, do you know where the ball is? If you are blocking and I am looking you straight in the eyes and the quarterback is all the way over there, am I in the right position to block you from getting to the quarterback? No, you're going to haul your ass that way, and I'm giving you an easy lane. So it's super important to understand IQ there, and I think it's something that very, very underappreciated. And then last but not least, hands, just to speed this up. Do you get your hands in the chest plate? Guys who are grabbing on the shoulders, I hate to say it, some people just love when a tackle like latches on to the shoulders. It's like, brother, first off, that guy moves in any way, shape, or form in like any direction you don't want them to. You're grabbing pure jersey, you're getting a holding call. But on top of that, think about that. When your arms are out wide like this, do you have more control than if you're up tight and you're just grabbed into their chest plate? You're looking them straight in the face. Your arms are closer together. And then you can also extend. And now you have it much closer to the core of your body. Super important to have your hands in the right spot. Certain systems, certain players can get around this, but it is something I still care about. And then it factor, there's certainly something to being able to say, hey, you have the great motor, or some guys take plays off. So there's ways to add pluses or minuses there. Now we get into number 20, and welcome into my YouTube viewers. If you guys have not paid attention for the first part of the video, because I yapped a lot, we did a top 32 over on Patreon, where I ended up describing a lot of players who you guys are probably going to be like, where are they on this list? Guys like Jake Slaughter, guys like Jaden Roberts, maybe Ioane, the center from Oregon. There's a lot of players on there that you guys will need to see if you guys go over to the Patreon, which again, it is a very, very tight group. I mean, the difference between number 29 and number 20 is 3 points. So we're talking about these guys all grouped together. I felt bad while I was mid Patreoning I was like, damn. It's like, I kind of wish I gave you guys 23 or something, but at the same time, I said 20. I respect it. I also want to give a little bit more credit to those who are spending the actual time and money on me as well over there. And I am going to tell you guys in the description below the players that were on that list that you guys are not seeing here. So you guys won't be like, I wonder if Alex studied this player. You will see it in the description below, just not in the order. And again, not the full breakdown, which I do want to give a little bit more credit to those who are going to be, supporting the show the way they do. But Emmanuel Pregnon, back to this. He is a really fun player, transfer from USC to Oregon. Really, really fun player to watch. Unique stance. I don't think he's 6'5", 320. I'm just going to be honest. He looks a little bit thinner. The dude definitely gives off some like 6'3.5", 6'4", 310. And you'll see he has a very unique stance when he is, when he has his hand in the dirt, when he's in his formation, when he's in his stance, I should say. So check it out. It's very intriguing. I'm excited to see him next to Isaiah World this year, because that's going to be a lot of mobility and a lot of power. But let's talk about his game versus Notre Dame. If you guys are new, I do read one scouting report or one game from my scouting report for you guys to basically sit down and watch the game with me. And essentially, this is not designed to be like, hey, versus Notre Dame, these are the pluses, these are the minuses. No, this is like you sit down next to me and we're watching the game, and these are the instant live takeaways. I write them for myself, but it actually gives a lot of context to these notes that I could just say, I think he's an average or an adequate pass block and run blocker, which is what a C means. But it's like, I really like the anchor and I really like the hand. I could say that, But then I'm just repeating what you're looking at on the screen. This adds the context to it, so I hope you guys like it. I do have position offensive linemen. I do not put that for guys who I think are just guards. I like his movement skills, and I think I'd love to see him as a tackle. Just test it out at least in preseason or at the Senior Bowl. But let's talk about his game versus Notre Dame. His arms look quite long. He seeks contact. He's very sudden out of his stance. He does have a very thin stance, so I was talking about it. It's kind of weird. He needs to keep a wide base when engaged. And I talked about this earlier for my Patreon folks. But, when you keep your feet together, you lack that base that if you think about a Dexter Lawrence getting his hands on you, do you think you're going to have a better chance of being upright if your feet are together or your feet are apart? So I probably ended up saying it in the intro, but apologies if I ended up just repeating myself. I still think it's very crucial regardless to understand that, you do need to have a nice wide base to maintain balance. You need to have good core strength and a good base. And, some guys don't have either, which is why they're not on this list, at least the one that you're seeing. But regardless, needs to keep a wide base when he's engaged. When you do keep your feet together, you're opening yourself up also to certain counters to where if your feet are upright, think about that. If you're standing straight up, can you be able to react left and right at the same way if you're already in a crouch stance, already kind of loaded up? Think about basketball, right? Ready position. They don't have you standing straight up like a toothpick. No, that's not how we roll here. But regardless, needs to stay square and keep his feet active with a wide stance. And I know he can do that because, during certain parts of the reps, he does have a wide stance. And I do know he has mobility. And it's more of a mental thing to stay square and be able to mirror. Needs to remain consistent as well through the reps. I can totally see a huge upside, but the longer the play goes on, the worse his form gets. He ended up lunging, leading to an easy pressure. And I said, not going to lie, would love to see him at a potential tackle spot, especially because he has so much range and he's able to move so much. I do think there's a chance for him there. His anchor is not great, but he does make it difficult to push him back consistently. So some guys, you end up being able to push them back like it's nothing. Some guys are an absolute stone wall. But, if you're not going to be able to lock your feet in place, at least make it a pain in the ass to push you to the quarterback. And, sometimes NFL offenses are able to work with that. There is something about him that gives me hope, even though some key areas make him not remotely NFL ready. So I really do like Emmanuel Pregnon. I mean, there are just some huge assets to his game. And again, you're looking at 6'5", 320. I do think it's probably more close to the 6'4", 310 territory. But I mean, if he is 6'5", 320, that dude is made of pure muscle. He does not. You see those the big Samoan guys like Wendell Moe, they're massive individuals and they you see them. They are just taking up space. Emmanuel Pregnon does not. But of course, muscle weighs more than fat. Some guys are just absolutely shredded individuals. I mean, even on the offensive line. But let's get on to it. Number 19, Cage Casey. And Cage was featured in the offensive tackle video. I do think he is a better guard. And I think he was number 18 on the tackle list. But he was noticeably lower graded. And I do not like this offensive tackle class. Number 19 in this guard class is actually really, really low compared to how good the score is. I just think this is a good offensive guard class if you end up factoring in the tackles that I did. But I'll repeat what I ended up talking about in the tackle video with his game versus Penn State because I think it's his most translatable game. He's a little late off the ball to start and ended up being a bit manhandled. Nice hand placement and pass protection off the bat. Nice switch up in the run game, but he ends up needing to maintain a better control of the defender. I knew off the bat when he was doing his slide that his anchor was shit, and then he ended up being annihilated. Definitely a leverage thing with this one time. Did not see it earlier. Hopefully it's not the norm. Guess what? The next line, it's the norm. His slide does not cover enough ground, so he ends up getting on his heels. He really needs to process how to stay in front of the defender in the run game because when he does a great job, but they end up slipping by or past very easily. He's up there with one of the worst lower bodies in the entire class, or lower mechanics, in the entire class. Huge drop off in terms of strength from Alex Harkey, who I was grading right before him. Uses way too much body for how tall he is. Good use of length and pass protection. The footwork has gotten a little bit more consistent. Genuinely shocked no one is trying to bull rush him when he has shown the tendency to get on his heels. Late reaction to a blitzer on an inside move for a clean pressure, and then he let up another inside move and did it a third time. I said, oh my lord, he did it again. Those are all lines right back to back to back. So this was just a consistent guy who was not learning from his mistakes mid-game. Just does not win the strength battle. His kick slide did not have enough range when engaged, allowing his outside shoulder to be taken, leading to a sack. Shout out to my boy Clay Fink over on X. You guys can go give him some love. He also is very in tune with Florida State. If you guys do like the Seminoles, he is somebody who's very good for that. But he thinks he's also a guard. So I ended up kind of agreeing with that. A lot of the issues he had would be relatively mitigated at guard. I think over a year or two, he can end up developing into somebody who has some potential to be able to get some reps. But statistically, he does a great job. I mean, you look at the pressure rate, he's one of the best in the country. I just think when you're talking about projecting him to the next level, you got to take him outside of his offense and outside of his situation and look at the player himself. And I'm a little bit worried. At number 18, we have Ernest Greene, another transplant from the overall tackle episode. But Ernest Greene, I've been consistent for over the past year that this guy is a guard. So this is like where I really like to see where he's at. But let's talk about his game versus Texas. His arms look short. He's holding and ended up being driven back immediately. Anchor's a major red flag when it comes from wide nine. Guess what? You don't have to worry about that shit when you're a guard, baby. Ended up oversetting. So again, that's kind of a compensation. You end up drifting too much when you end up, letting your outside shoulder and not being able to handle certain like wide nine sets. Has some punchiness and has some good hand fighting technique. He is not a bad player. He's just not built to play tackle. Had an awful rep trying to one arm an edge rusher, ended up being destroyed. He ended up oversetting again. Far from a bad talent, just out of position. Will be a solid guard. I mean, that's just the nature of Ernest Greene. Not an amazing athlete, gets taken advantage of by good athletes in a position that, especially from wide nine, take advantage of guys who are not great athletes. Number 17, this is a player who I really like. Again, we're just outside of that fringe starting territory in our Armaj Reed Adams. And I mean, you look at this, it is very difficult to grade well, if I'm being honest, as an offensive guard and end up, it's just, I don't like to be able to give great, like super high grades out to everyone. And I know you could look at that as pessimistic and you might say like, well, okay, actually you guys have not watched that portion of the video. It's for the Patreon viewers, but I already had 2 interior offensive linemen to the Seattle Seahawks, but I actually wanted Jaden Roberts to play right tackle. So that's why I ended up having that for my people who are watching on Patreon, who are actually watching all of this. But Armaj Reed Adams is someone who I really like. I do think, unfortunately, that you just can't give everybody fringe starter or starter grades. That's just not realistic. I mean, we see it every year. Like first round picks end up being backups for like the first year, right? Like it's just not something where every single guy is going to plug and play off the bat. And it's a reality we got to live in. It's not one that I love, but it's just one that we live in. But Armaj Reed Adams is a very good player. Let's talk about his game versus Texas. Again, I like having these games so you guys get to see more so apples to apples and not like, oh, I cherry picked this game, cherry picked this game. If you can end up seeing how players perform against the same guys, you get to see where maybe some strengths and weaknesses are across the board. So versus Texas, a bit lungy off the bat, has good patience in pass protection, has a nice wide stance, he has some it factor to him as well. Probably should have boosted him. You know what? I kind of feel bad now. But regardless, I mean, it probably would boost him one spot, and I think it would actually only tie. So he's probably going to be 17, but he'd be in a new class. He has high IQ when it comes to assisting players as well. His feet can get a bit close when he's trying to push, which, again, it happens, but it's something that you should just try to continue mitigating for the reason I mentioned earlier. Over-leveraged, got thrown. Misfired his hands on a pull block and got thrown again. Would like some better length usage. Needs to remain more active to mirror after initial contact. It's been a consistent issue with these guards, too. Like, I know that tackles are more so supposed to be mirroring better than guards because you're just in a lot more open area, but it's not something that you should be ignoring on the interior. When he is patient and he uses length, he could dominate. The issue is that he gets ahead of himself, and, that's just something you got to be patient. You got to keep control. Larger upside than some of these other guards, but still has a lot of room to grow. Number 16, actually, yeah, look at that. See, with a 1 point it factor boost, he'd be tied with Trey Zuhn, who is also on that offensive line. We ended up also, grading Chase Bazontes. I think that's how you say it. It might be Bazontes. I'm not someone who like is perfect with pronunciations, but Zuhn, I actually don't mind him as a tackle. The problem is apparently his arms are actually fully measured and has an official 31.5 inches. That shit ain't gonna fly at tackle. Like I can make some exceptions for like 32.5 inches, but when it's in the 31s, you sometimes just gotta admit, like, 35-inch arm edge rusher is gonna whoop your ass. But let's talk about his game also versus Texas. Again, we're going Texas, Texas, Texas here. Loving the mobility, but yeah, the arms are short. Love how he tries to utilize length with some hand fighting. Has some good pop as well. Simulated guard rep, which you won't be hearing it very much this episode, but I have said it with certain tackles as well that I think are hybrids that I might not have even included on this list. A simulated guard rep where, I mean, also there are some like edges where I'll see them like have a simulated defensive interior rep, but essentially you have as a tackle, if you have a tight end next to you and you're blocking, it's essentially like you're a guard because you're bookended by other blockers. It's not the same thing, but you get to see how mentally they handle being confined rather than having all this open space. But regardless, has a good anchor for someone who's always losing the length battle. Has some good punches for sure. Appreciate his re-anchor because the initial anchor can be a little iffy. Needs to be less erratic in space and be a bit calmer. Lunged on the goal line, ended up whiffing. Should thrive as a guard. So fringe starting guard, really like it. It's just, again, got to watch out for those arm length issues. And, he will be transitioning. At 15, let's try to pronounce this one. Ole Vavega Ioane. I definitely mispronounced that. Feel free to put the proper pronunciation. But, big fan of this guy. I've seen some people put him as high as a first-round grade. I understand if you do, because some people just love a mauling hog molly. And at 6'4", 334, this guy is fucking massive. And look at the image. Look at below my face. This dude's huge. But let's talk about him, guard out of Penn State. A bit slow in understanding what to do. So that IQ grade definitely took a little bit of a hit. His feet are super heavy, but he has nice hand placement and pop and pass protection so far. He has garbage footwork, but I love his upper mechanics in pass protection. He got fucked up by a defensive interior changing angles. So talking about that mirroring, you got to be able to handle when the defensive interior changes where he's going. His anchor is popping up to be surprising question mark for his density. Ended up being a little bit more consistent than I gave him credit for there. Does a good job staying active in the run game. A lot of pulling to tackle reps for some reason. I do not think he's a tackle. So just FYI. I said dude is shit in space, so he's definitely a guard. Like when you just can't handle all the open area. I didn't understand it. Like what? Maybe that's why they want Anthony Donko to play guard, so they could just pull him so he could just be another tackle. Maybe. I don't know. It's just Ioane definitely needs to be a guard. He has a tendency to freeze his feet in pass protection and has trouble with agile defenders. Surprisingly less powerful than his playstyle suggests. He should be, his playstyle suggests that he should be. He is an A+ run blocker. His issues pertain nearly solely to his lower body. Can definitely lunge versus second level defenders. But that's something where if you're in a gap system, your gap concept, where you don't want this guy to just be hauling ass 24/7, and you want him just to open up lanes right in front of him, this guy is going to be an absolute savage. And if you have a good offensive line coach or have some very good mentors there, I think it will work. Of course, I do think that with the improved lower mechanics, he can work in any system. It's just something where I think you just need the right guys. And I'm thinking Trent Williams here for the Niners specifically, just being able to coach him up on how to utilize his feet, I think will unlock him. But early on, if you need him to play off the bat, I would go for a gap system. But again, I do think he could be a balanced blocker if he ends up being in the right system with the right mentors. At number 14, also a transplant from my tackle video, but somebody at 277 pounds. Reese's Senior Bowl released a top 300. I didn't see it posted online, so I hope to God I'm not like saying something I shouldn't. But they ended up emailing their top 300, and Chris Adams was listed at 300 pounds on there, but Memphis still has him at 277. Just going to trust Memphis, but there is a solid chance they had some secret numbers that, hey, Chris Adams is actually 300 pounds. We're just too lazy to update it on the website. Like, I hope that's the case. But let's talk about his game versus Navy. Navy is, they're not necessarily technically savvy at Navy, but military dudes, like, we all know they're hardcore dudes. So you're not going and having a picnic whenever you face Army, whenever you face Navy. Insanely explosive, as he should be. Already gave up his outside shoulder. He lunged when firing his hands, giving up an easy angle. He needs to chill with his lunging, needs to learn how to block with his back to the ball because he takes shitty angles, leaving easy block shedding chances and lanes to the ball carrier. He stopped blocking early after shutting a defensive end down, ending up letting up a pressure. His simulated guard rep, again, where a tight end is lined up by you, wasn't necessarily bad. Has some legit power as well. Needs to stop lunging and dipping his head. Definitely has some legit losses and wins, but the tendencies are kind of scary. Nice pancake block with good core strength. It tends to have a harder time with defensive ends. Another reason you should be a guard. On top of the fact that he's listed 277. But I love his energy and desire to lay a dude out. Definitely want him on my team. I just don't know what to do with him if he is 277 pounds. He has some legit awesome reps. Another pancake versus a defensive interior this time. The anchor holds up well for his size, but definitely not a primary asset. I get how he could have a good game. It's a pass protector versus Navy, but these military guys are usually headaches versus the run, and he is annihilating them. Will need to improve his IQ noticeably to work in the NFL, but has some amazing traits for being his size. And I think that sums it up. I mean, Chris Adams, I'm so excited to see him continue to grow and develop. I actually got to see him in person, but I just didn't know about him at the time at the Frisco Bowl. But good player. Really fun player. Drew Shelton is next, and I did not really like him as a tackle. I told you guys I liked him as a guard, and this is noticeably higher than his guard grade. Let's talk about his game versus Oregon. Handled the rusher well initially on a run play, but did not maintain control nor positioning. Good transition so far, solid hand fighting. He let the rusher get into his chest and blow up his anchor. Worried big time about his arm length. Ended up trying to do a snatch attempt where, you try to get outside, push a guy down, try to snatch him. Handles defensive interiors well so far, continually losing battles to Mateo Mauigoa, who has really solid arm length. Not necessarily a great athlete, though, in my opinion. Has major issue with missetting, allowing easier lanes to the quarterback. By missetting, it's just you're not in the right position in the pocket. You either drift too much, drift too little, allowing easy lanes either on your outside shoulder or to the inside. Continues to be long-armed. Does an excellent job versus defensive interiors without the length advantage. I ended up oversetting again. Definitely think he's a guard based on his issues and how they'd be mitigated at guard. Dude is like kind of falling apart, not winning the majority of these reps, and it is clear that he is not. I'm so severely let down. I hate it when I was talking about him as a tackle, but just like when you see these issues where the tackle is not setting in the right spot, but they have some good power, and then when you end up seeing them crack down on defensive interiors, they're actually having a lot more success. You feel, and at least this is the way I think, you feel a lot more comfortable about them going up against defensive interiors full time versus the guys who they're struggling against, which are these edge rushers. Number 12, we got Lockette. Shout out to my guy. He's been pestering me in the DMs to give him an eval, and so I finally crumbled. Got to see Talik in person at their bowl game this past year over at, I think it was a Serve Pro game. They ended up playing, I believe it was UNT, but I do know I was watching Texas State because had a couple other guys that I was talking to there from Texas State. But Talik, very, very fun player. We'll talk about his game versus Arizona State. Talked about it earlier, but Arizona State, some guys just had some really good grades, and I think there's a big discrepancy between some of the defensive interiors on ASU, but there's guys like CJ Fight, who I really like, that I want to be able to see guys like Talik play up against. But has some long arms, got some good power as well, has some real pop in his hands. Need to see a little better re-anchoring ability. When defenders get close, his hands tend to slip to the outside. And I was actually talking to, forgetting the name off the top of my head, but the center from Purdue, I think it's like Gus something, but Gus Hartwig, he was talking to me in an interview about whether, like, why hands kind of just start drifting wider and wider. And he was talking about kind of it more so being an insecurity thing. It's very tough to, land your hands in the chest plate, especially if your hands are close together and you hit a shoulder. Think about that. Like if you miss, it's kind of hard to reset, refire your hands when the defender's coming at you. So when you do it wide, you do kind of have almost 100% chance of making contact. But this is the NFL. I mean, you have to be able to have the skill to make it work. And I do think Talik does. It's just, I know that a lot of these offensive linemen do not want to get embarrassed. I mean, I'm talking about Wendell Moe not making my top 20 because of the fact that his whiffs are that bad. But regardless, I'm not talking about this exclusively for Talik. This is a commentary on all offensive linemen in general. But he flashed some re-anchor, did not maintain his mirror. So, sometimes guys will be able to lock their feet down, but they end up keeping their feet in place, right? Like sometimes you just got to relock your feet and then get back to actually playing the defender rather than just trying to stop the retreat. And, again, that's a fine detail. It's a nitpick, but it is something that will be something you need to have at the NFL. And I said, I can see an NFL player with him for sure. He just needs to refine his hands and his lower body, which is a big thing. And I do know he ended up returning to school, trying to make sure that he was in proper shape. Love seeing that because I already think he's a pretty solid athlete overall, but he wanted to make sure he was healthy as well, which is a very big factor. So I'm hoping he is. But he flashes some more mirroring, which is good to see. Again, it was just kind of when you end up re-anchoring, it is tough. It's a small thing, but you do need to work on it. High potential with the strength and athletic traits. So Talik Lockette, who would think that a Texas State guy is beating out all the Penn State players? But Caden Greene is next at number 11. This is a player that I really, really like. Just the mobility score did end up kind of dropping him a little bit. He's just not the most athletic guy on planet Earth, which is so funny because you think about, Armand Membu, who is like a top tier athlete. I just didn't get the vibe from Caden Greene that he is on that tier of athlete. But let's talk about his game versus South Carolina. He's doing a nice job staying square as a run blocker so far. Does not seem overly athletic. His anchor is very strong. Lower footwork seems a bit heavy and a bit off. Needs to stay in better position as a pass blocker. He can let up easy angles. Can get toesy in the run game. Get nose over the toes. And end up opening himself to being thrown to the ground. I think he'd thrive more in gap concepts due to his limited mobility. Not a fan of how often he dips his head before contact. Footwork is just not very good. He just let Sanders pop him first, well before he tried to fire his hands. So Sanders got into his chest plate, which TJ Sanders, you just got to admit, the guy has some really good arm length. It is going to be an issue, but it was to the point where he didn't even think about firing his hands and just instantly got lit up in the chest plate. It's like, you can't do that. But regardless, his timing and length usage have been major concerns combined with the over leveraging. I'm worried about it, but it kind of was his first year truly starting the whole time. Ended up getting subbed out. I think he ended up getting hurt, but he ended up being back or drive later. His anchor has not been a problem at all, but he just does not know how to stay in position and make the path to the quarterback difficult. Kid definitely has a high ceiling with how strong his anchor is. He handles space horribly, so no chance of being a tackle there. IQ is low, but that should continue to improve with experience. Dude is a legit ass as a zone blocker. Huge upside in the right system. So I understand guys who will put him in the first round. If you're in the right system for him, he's going to be so good. But it's just like, I need him to also just understand how to use his feet. And that's why for a team like the Ravens, who have some guys who have really good mobility, it's like I feel very similar to what I was talking about earlier. Who was I talking about earlier for this as well? I think I couldn't even say his name, but Ioane, the guard. It's like I think you can end up being able to live in a zone system, especially when you have someone like Derrick Henry as well. It's like it's a little bit different than you're trying to be in a Mike McDaniel system. I think it is a little bit different of a style of zone, but like a power zone concept, I think is okay. Just you need to know how to use your lower in that case. So I do think specifically for the Ravens, they can end up maximizing it. But Davion Carter is next. I mean, there's a chance that I should have just probably dropped this guy even more, but He is small. I mean, 6 foot 295, but he plays like a motherfucker. He is a mean player. He's a mean fighting machine. Texas Tech has a chance to win to push for the Natty at least. I mean, you look at their acquisitions. I mean, apparently, I believe it was the #1 quarterback right now. Might be in the portal, but might be in high school class. Like he's thinking between, or at least one of the top guys. He's thinking between like 3 schools, and it's like Texas, might be Florida State, and then it's like Texas Tech. And I'm like, oh my God. So you can tell how much money Texas Tech is shoveling out because they're getting great transfers. Lee Hunter, I almost said Samuel Okunla, but David Bailey. Like they're just having such good. And then you have Caleb Douglas on the team, Baron Morton, and then Davion Carter too. Like just really good players at key positions. He's a guard. But I do think he can end up being a center because of the size. I do think I'd prefer for him to be in that type of position. But regardless, start out his game versus ASU. So at first, I ended up noting he looks small, which he is. And then I say in all caps, holy shit, he moves. And then it says his arms look in all caps short. So I'm thinking like that 31-inch range. Dude has great leg drive. Hand placement initially is also great. Add 10 pounds and this dude could be a superstar. Can get panicked and play with a lot of anxiety after making mistakes. Would like a little bit more mental presence after initial contact because he can get complacent. Lampkin, but better is the comp. So Willie Lampkin's actually having some really good success in the preseason. But I think Davion Carter is one of those guys who probably will end up going like maybe latter part of the 150. Maybe if he ends up like, because I'm assuming they're making a strong push and he's going to be a big reason for it. But I mean, maybe he'll be 6th, 7th round, and he'll end up being someone who's like a really good asset. But love the mobility. The dude is an absolute animal. Ended up following me back on Twitter, so shout out to Davion Carter for that. But I do not give any praise to people for doing stuff like that. I just appreciate it. At number 9, Connor Lew is a beast. Really like Connor Lew. But let's talk about his game versus Georgia. Small notes here, so we'll kind of elaborate on it a little bit more. Really nice movement and with fluidity and pop in his hands. I want a bit better anchor. He's a gritty player, has some good balance, would like a little bit more consistent hand placement, has some legit it factor, whiffed on a reach block, could not re-anchor and ended up being thrown near the goal line. Short and simple, but I mean, he is somebody who is hyper athletic. He is 300 pounds. I want him to get to 310. Like the average weight for a center in the NFL is 308 pounds. Like Connor Lew might be in the 295 range, but I mean, he's a proficient blocker, has some dominant wins. He is very mobile. He is very strong. He knows what he's doing. But I mean, if you add a little bit of weight, a little bit of sand in the pants, he could end up being somebody just truly special. Number 8, Austin Barber. So this is another reason why like you could probably push some guys up. Austin Barber, most people view him as a tackle. I just cannot see it after watching his Tennessee game, which we're going to talk about. Like, I think he's solely a guard based on the fact he cannot handle a speed rusher to save his life. But good foot speed and hand fighting, instantly got pushed to the quarterback. Needs to watch his hands getting on the shoulder pads. Ended up being beat outside by his outside shoulder by Joshua Josephs. Needs to fire his hands at the chest plate. He has missed a few times because they are just too wide, which funnily enough is counterintuitive. But, you know, again, if guys are moving really fast and your hands are wide, you also could be missing and just pretty much be completely whiff. Not going to lie. I like him at guard with these simulated guard reps. So again, talking about the tight end being there. Needs to watch out for his feet freezing upon contact. Feet freezing is the core of his issues combined with his wider hands. Not going to lie, these problems would kind of vanish at guard, and I genuinely am getting Pro Bowl possible vibes if he's in the right situation as a guard. Can get lungy in the open field. He got toesy and ended up being thrown. Anchor is not hasn't been gotten since the first few reps, so that's good. Transitions blocks very well. His arms pre-extend to receive contact. Not a fan of that. So he'll end up going like this, and then the defender will come into him rather than firing and then hitting and then pushing. Like, again, we're talking about like the patty cakes thing. I really want to see, like, he has the power to him. It's just don't receive contact, deliver it. That's just my thing for both offense and defense. Deliver the power. And you guys can simultaneously deliver power to each other. Just don't be somebody where, because also think about it, if your arm's just pre-extended and some dude knows how to chop your arms down, there's a chance you're on your face in seconds in the NFL. So Definitely not something I'm a huge fan of right there. That issue gets mitigated when you're face to face with the guy you're probably blocking. But regardless, uh, he just got his arms chopped. There we go. For an easy pressure. I promise I did not know that line was coming. So that's funny. Maybe I overestimated his foot speed. He gave up the outside shoulder, leading to a clean wide 9 sack. Just got embarrassed by JPJ multiple times in a row. Caught lunging, and the edge went right by. Joshua Joseph got chipped and still got his outside shoulder. Long armed by Joshua Josephs. I think he's a guard. Just cannot handle space well with adjusting angles. I'm convinced he cannot be an NFL tackle based on how he continues to freeze his lower half and let up easy angles. Not an issue at guard, though. Austin Barber definitely has a good potential. He has 33.5-inch arms, apparently measured by Florida. We'll see if that comes true come January, or I believe it's like late January, early February, because I'm pretty damn sure Austin Barber will be at the Senior Bowl. Number 7, this was a surprise for me, but Joshua Braun from Arkansas, now at Kentucky, was someone who I ended up mentioning a couple years ago because I really did like the center slash guard, and I'm forgetting his name. He's on the Rams, but was a big fan of him initially before he ended up kind of falling off a little bit. But I was like, this Joshua Braun guy is another dude who I really like. And he's a 6th year. So he's not the youngest buck in the building, but he is huge. 6'6", 342, and looks like it. But he doesn't look like fat 342. He looks big. And that's really good to have. Not too much to know overall, just seems really reliable. So that's how I kind of felt with like the first 20 reps of the game. Just kind of feels like a good old reliable. A bit late to help the tackle, leading to a sack. Talk about a nitpick. Amazing one-on-one rep, handling a spin move with patience and with a good anchor. Some guys just cannot handle spin moves to save their life. Just not something that you're just naturally comfortable with, especially if it's executed properly. Josh Braun looked like a seasoned veteran in there, as he should, but it is important to still be able to, like, some guys are old and seasoned, but they sure as hell don't look like it. This dude screams solid early day 3 pick that I wouldn't mind going day 2. Hand placement has been elite. Great patience as a pass blocker, but he can kind of lunge as a run blocker. Overall, very solid. This is Mr. Old Reliable. We were talking about Tate Ratledge last year. I believe Tate was younger than Josh Braun, but also different build entirely. But we're talking about that guy who's just Mr. Reliable. And I think Josh Braun is that to a T. I mean, even going up against Texas's defensive interiors, he ended up looking rock solid, and that's a great place to be. Charles Jagusah is a freaking monster. And I'm going to quote the game where he's a left tackle, but I think it's more translatable than like the game he played as a left guard. But I mean, I really, really have a high opinion of Charles Jagusah. I do have him 2- based on like lack of experience, but on top of that, he's 6'7". So he got a -2 for the lack of experience at left tackle, -1 for that at guard, and then -1 again for being 6'7". It's very tough to be a 6'7" guard. But let's talk about his game versus Ohio State. What a game he ended up doing in the national championship. Talk about a game to make your first start at tackle. He's a feisty player. He's extremely athletic. He's my type of offensive lineman. I love this type of movement twitch. Over pursued JT Tuimoloau around the outside shoulder, but I definitely understand the type of nerves early on. We'll see how he learns. Could use more length to long arm defenders rather than just lose the range battle. Again, probably more of like an anxiety risk mitigation thing. Because if you just completely extend and whiff, I understand. Maybe he just doesn't want to test his range out too much. Needs to watch over angling his shoulders to compensate for his outside shoulder. It opens up an easy path to cut underneath him for a pressure. Good handling of a stunt. Needs to be careful of freezing his lower half. He needs to watch out for being too tall as well and losing the leverage battle. Definitely showing how green he is, but he has flashed immense potential. Still plays like a guard, so again, that's why he's more comfortable here at the guard. Needs to be careful in pass protection of standing too tall. There we go again. He has some nice nimble feet with a good pass protection rep, so he shows some ability there. Very susceptible to inside counters with a big bad pressure, a bad pressure that ended up being huge by a chess match with JT Tuimoloau. I will say this guy can fly in a straight line. Kind of feels like a young Xavier Truss, but actually at the NFL level of talent. Starting to let his hands drift wider to compensate. He ended up being block shed because he lunged in the run game. Given his amazing athletic traits, I could care less about his outside shoulder and try to prevent more inside counters and ride the edge around the boundary of the pocket. I said low-key his comp could be a combination of Xavier Truss and Tali Fuaga. That's a savage combination. Um, but he ended up being beat by an inside spin. Lucky that JTT slipped. No one is getting his outside shoulder. So again, really, really good athlete. Real insane potential, but it's very green at the position. Went up against veteran technicians with size and was bound to be a bit of an embarrassment, but he held his own quite well. Still think guard is a good spot for him if these tendencies do not work themselves out. So that's why for the Niners, I would have him as a guard in the short run. I know I ended up mentioning another player for the Niners before, but I mean, if you want to take a swing on somebody to be your true left tackle who might have some early tendencies at guard, it's going to be great. Number 5, we're jumping to a whole new tier. These are the day one starters. Parker Brailsford, actually, excuse me, Charles Jagusah, I think could be a day one starter. But Parker Brailsford is next. And this guy might be 290 pounds, but my lord, he is unbelievably solid for that. He used to play at 275 at Washington. This guy is just rock solid, man. We'll talk about his game versus Michigan. This was versus not like Kenneth Grant and it's more so versus like Rayshon Benny and such, because I don't believe they played this game. But still good to see top end defensive interiors at the end of the year as well. Flashes some good re-anchor off the bat. Anchor's popping up as a solid asset with good hand refires. Need to watch out for lunging as a run blocker. It's a common trait for everyone. Does have some slip-ups with his anchor, but overall has been very reliable. Really solid as a pass blocker so far. Definitely looks the eye test like the best center in the class. That did not end up maintaining. I'll just say that. Best center in the class at the time that I was watching it. I love his core strength and everything about his game. I mean, he plays like he's 310, 315. I'm pretty sure he was a state champion as a wrestler as well. Like the dude is just an absolute like physical phenom for his size, like really mobile, really strong. And again, it's just like not many issues outside of the actual numerical 290 pounds. So really, really like Parker Brailsford. And number 4, we have Francis Mauigoa. We'll talk about his game versus Louisville because, I mean, first off, Louisville, you get a good test of like when you look at Ashton Gillette, more of a Spags edge rusher that's kind of a hybrid of a defensive interior. But it really showed. I was like, oh, APR had his way versus Francis Mauigoa. A lot of guys did at tackle. I think he's a solid guard. But stands a bit tall initially. Arms definitely look short based on the defender getting to him first while he tries to still reach out and punch. Has some pop to his hands. Love how patient he is to fire his hands, especially with his arm length. Froze his feet when firing his hands and allowed to the outside shoulder. Happened multiple times. Really bad rep overall. As stated before, he froze his lower half, allowing a pressure on the outside shoulder, then did nothing to help Cam with plenty of opportunities to. I ended up posting that rep. It was very perplexing. Long-armed and ended up being back towards the quarterback, beginning to think he's a guard. So it's the moment where I'm like, maybe Jordan Reed is right, and he is a good guard. His hands slipped when he was firing his hands. So again, talking about the hand placement. Simulated guard rep looked nice as a run blocker. So had some faith there. Has some awesome reps in pass protection, allowing some of the strongest punches and the best hand fighting, but it's clear that he's way more suited to be a guard with his, sorry if you guys ended up hearing that. This mic is amazing. I probably didn't hear anything, but it's clear that he's more suited to play guard with the arm length and lapses. Give up the outside shoulder when trying to win the leverage battle. Has solid enough re-anchor, but the initial anchor is spotty. Inside pressure to Gillette. Just clubbed a defender, so love to see that strength. Not a guaranteed guard, but it's a much more uphill battle while he's always losing strength. Kobe Baynes. This top 3 is going to be absolute batshit, so get ready. I mean, one of these guys is bound to like not be here by the end, but Kobe Baynes caught my eye well before I ever graded him. I'm like, this guy's just really good. And I didn't think he was this good. But let's talk about his game versus ASU. He starts off the game by suplexing a guy. I'm like, all right, like that's cool. He always keeps his head on a swivel as well to kind of know who to help. Hands can definitely be placed more inside. Appears comfortable in both gap and zone blocking systems. I wish he had a bit more arm power. Really solid overall, man. I don't know why no one is talking about him. Core strength is 100% there, so as an asset, it's very good. He is dominant. He lunged and ended up being swim move while ending up in zone. Would prefer gap, but he is still a balanced blocker. Top end guard option with a very, very high floor. I mean, the dude's just reliable. I mean, it kind of feels like Josh Braun, but like not appreciated at the same level. This guy's going to end up probably going in the 6th or 7th round, but I think he's someone who will end up starting for a roster one day. And number 2, this one caught me off guard. As you heard my comments earlier where I'm like, oh, Parker Brailsford, best center in the class. Lyndon Cooper blew my fucking mind, man. I mean, this guy, I was like, what? This was someone who I tossed in. And it always is one of these fuckers. Like for edge rusher, unfortunately, I didn't even get to include him in the video. But Malachi Lawrence, I mean, like, love affair. And yeah, I mean, I'm half of the time I'm gonna get one of these guys like wrong, because when everyone says A and I'm saying B, there's a chance that everyone's more right than me. But if I'm having a 50% hit rate, which I think at this point it's even higher than that, which I mean, power to me, but I mean at the same time, there are some pretty bad whiffs that I have. I'm not saying that I am the guru. I'm just saying I'm willing to be ballsy. I'm willing to be honest. I don't do it to be ballsy. I do it solely to be honest. And I have a pretty good hit rate with these guys. Like, if I really like a player, they end up really showing out, and I feel very confident with that. With Lyndon Cooper, I mean, I watched his game versus Clemson specifically, and it's just like, holy shit. And let's talk about that. I mean, you're going up against 3 to 4 NFL defensive interiors, and this guy holds his own. Let's talk about it, though. Wolf got out-muscled off the bat. So talk about also, initially, I'm like, oh, really? Whiffing punches because he isn't in range. So talk about the first couple plays where I'm like having some doubts off the bat. Should I even watch this guy? And then it just all goes uphill. Like, especially when you're facing like top 5 overall pick defensive interior talent. Similar to what I was talking about Charles Jagusah, you might have some early game jitters that just make you do some stuff. And it's like, how do you end up responding as you get more and more comfortable, more and more set into the game? Like, we have mid-season form, but we also have mid-game form. But he's definitely a scrappy guy, and I like that. Actually, pretty damn good player apart from those first 2 reps. First center, I have felt the need to say that I like his snap accuracy. I never really think about that with centers, and something I should, if I'm just being honest. But I also think that I would probably hear it from every single person if they're just inaccurate as a center, and I would have picked up on it. But it was just like, man, these snaps are like just kind of getting there timely. Like, they're a good spot. It was kind of weird. Like, I just never picked up on it. His anchor looks good overall. Uses great length as well. Dude has some clamps. By clamps, control. Handles his own quite well, even versus Woods. Would like a little better re-anchor, but does a good job at least slowing the retreat. Could mirror a bit better. Has real power in his arms. This is a nitpick, but he needs to be more aware of how his guards are doing, because Woods blew him up on a stunt that the guard failed to assist with. So I ended up posting that as well. It said Peter Woods appreciation tweet, but it kind of was like Lyndon, you got to realize your guard is absolutely getting fucked up right now. Like, you need to be a little bit more aware of that rather than like finding out when Peter Woods is in your earlobe. Like, you kind of need to do that. But overall has a very high IQ. I see this more of an issue with the guards than necessarily him. Good motor. Easily could be the best center of the class. Dude does so much damage control for these fuck-ass guards. Re-anchor popped up as an asset outside of that 1 rep. Great motor, deserves an it factor point. I mean, Lyndon Cooper just surprised me. Again, this is somebody where the first couple reps, like the first 2 reps, I'm like, all right, another one of these guys. And I didn't even want to watch this guy. But it just shows you why, like, sometimes you just need to, like, if you see someone give someone like an early day 3 grade, just watch them. Like, just see what's up. I mean, if you're seeing someone say like a late day 3, like, see how the season progresses and then go after it. Like, the Baylor guards, it's kind of how I'm going to be handling that. Like, I didn't see anybody give them like legit early day 3 grades. So it's like, I'm going to see them in person here at SMU. Like, I already saw them in person, and I've also watched enough Baylor guys, but definitely think guys like Lyndon Cooper, when I saw an early day 3 grade, I was like, let's just toss him in. And, some people will say, hey, this guy's like 110 on my board. And being 110 on your board could easily be a starter. And it just depends on like how you feel about the translatability, where someone could be a first round grade. Like for me, Lyndon Cooper is a first. And for someone else, it could be like like a fourth round. Like there is that range in there to make it understandable, especially for the center position. So, I mean, because a lot of people really undervalue it. I think that if you get it right, it's something that you don't replace for a very long time. But at number one, we got Thomas Rimac. What the fuck? Another player who I got to see in person, by the way. We put so much love and attention on the left tackle spot. And we forgot to look at left guard. But let's talk about his game versus Baylor. Pretty damn twitchy with some good pop. If he can maintain his mirror a little bit longer, I could see him being a huge riser. Almost has tackle tendencies. I'm surprised I put position guard. I honestly thought I put offensive lineman for him. I'm concerned with the consistency of power as he tends to not have a lot of strength in his lower body. That is something that kind of is a little bit iffy. Appears pretty high IQ with how he handles assisting. Just damn good overall with some minor but easy to work on issues. Could be a little sooner on the switch, so switching off, but he does a good job. Initial anchor can get iffy, but has shown great re-anchor. Would like his hands to land a little bit more consistently, but when they do, they land very well and with great length usage. That sounded like a Donald Trump quote. They don't always land, but they land very well and with great length usage. This offense has great blend of zone and gap concepts too, so you get a wide variety. Honestly, could be one of the better pass blocking guards that I've ever studied. Actually has some good open field awareness too. Insane upside. That's going to be the video. Thank you again for watching. Showing the love that you do. I'll see you later. Peace.